The morning rain seemed to comb the Santa Monica shoreline with silver fingers as the coastal beam lit its warm lights. Jazz played softly, the smell of freshly ground coffee stitched itself into the breath of those who entered, and the air carried the salty freshness of the Pacific through the door each time someone arrived. Lena Brooks had already wiped down the espresso machine twice, but the third time was for another reason, to calm her heart. At 26, that ritual was her armor. Blonde with a deep tone that seemed to hold summer's secrets, green eyes that saw more than they revealed, pale skin that blushed easily, Lena fit the scene like someone choosing to hide in plain sight. Black apron, white t-shirt, jeans, no hint of the literature degree folded in a drawer, no signal of the novel she had not yet dared to finish. The world passed through her, she let it go. Then the bell rang, and the air seemed to shift its density. Alexandra Reed entered like a line underlining the scene. 34 years old. CEO of a chain of gyms displayed on billboards all over California. A body carved by discipline, the posture of someone who knows exactly where to place her hands, on which beat to step. And yet, tailored suits instead of sportswear. Graphite blazer, silk shirt, flawless trousers, heels that marked the floor with restrained elegance. Her face carried firm features, a mouth that seemed to prefer truth over applause, blue eyes that, under the café's amber lights, gained a maritime shade. She took her usual corner as if opening an invisible window. There was in her that rare quality of someone who commands noise but is pursued by silence. The usual? Lena asked and noticed the slight tremble in her own voice. Not because she had forgotten the order, it was her body revealing that sometimes invisibility failed. "Today, to go," said Alexandra, and the phrase came with a pause that usually didn't. Then, "Could we talk in private?" Lena nodded, perhaps too fast. She signaled to Mike, the manager, with a gesture and led the CEO to the corner of light which she mentally called the place of other people's confessions. Outside, the rain was thinning. Inside, the noises softened as in a film when the soundtrack decides to whisper. "I have a charity dinner tonight," Alexandra began, resting her hand on the table. It wasn't a nervous hand, but one that had held a break for too long. "At my house, in Malibu. Press people, sponsors, those conversations that feel like a maze. It's for the Los Angeles orphanage." She tilted her head slightly, as if she preferred to look out the window before finishing. "I need company." Lena's heart stepped forward. Company was not just any word. The idea of closeness fit between her wrist and her throat, where the blood ran faster. "Company as in," she asked, keeping her voice in the line of the ordinary. "Someone to help me seem a little less." Alexandra searched for the word and, for an instant, lowered her guard, "less alone." The word settled over them like the first drop in a glass yet to be filled. Lena felt something electric, discreet, running from her forearm to her fingertips. There was an honest clarity in that admission. It wasn't a game. It was a woman learning to ask for what she had always handled alone. "And why me?" Lena heard herself ask, without harshness, without defiance, just clean curiosity. Alexandra held her gaze. The blue sea was there, but so was something older, a kind of weariness that vacations can't fix. "Because you look at me as a person," she said at last. "Not as a position, not as a display. As someone who keeps coming back to the same corner because she needs a place to breathe." The phrase, simple, entered Lena's skin like warmth after wind. She remembered the stack of rejection letters from the publisher, the rent calculated in her head, the almost finished novel. And she realized that at that table, Alexandra wasn't the only one asking for something. The world, in its most tangible form, was inviting Lena to walk through a door. "What time?" she asked. The barely visible relief that crossed Alexandra's eyes was more beautiful than any compliment. Lena handed her the coffee. Alexandra left an envelope, stood with her usual elegance, and said only, "At 7. I'll send a car." When she left, the bell rang again, and the cups resumed their clinking, as if the cafe had learned to breathe once more. But Lena's body was no longer the same. Her skin seemed to hold a promise. The air seemed to fit better in her lungs. And her hands, which had always known what to do with an espresso machine, suddenly wanted to learn another language, perhaps the one spoken by fingers that near without touching, perhaps the one of eyes discovering when it's safe to linger. At 6:30, Lena's apartment looked like the scene of a passing comet, clothes over a chair, a brush gliding without rush, the distant sound of the sea slipping through the window. The doorman delivered an elegant box, inside, a navy blue silk dress, silver heels, delicate jewelry that did not shout. A short note, "I hope it fits." Lena pressed the paper to her chest as if testing its temperature. The fabric, when it touched her skin, shaped her body with tenderness. It did not turn her into someone else, just gave courage to the one she had always been. In the mirror, her blonde hair fell in disciplined waves, her green eyes gained a new glow with the subtle eyeliner, her lips the exact color of things chosen to be said. Fear and excitement shared the same room, one whispered, "What if?" The other answered, when Lena took a deep breath, and the breathing came with a scent of salt and citrus, like a night deciding to be warm. Her phone vibrated with a short message from the driver, "I'm outside, Lena." Daniel. The simple name on a rectangle of light was the kind of detail that grounds you. Before leaving, she touched the corner of the mirror's frame with her fingertips as if sealing a silent pact. Tonight, she would not hide. Tonight, she would let the light find her. The black car had seats that embraced without pressing and a silence that invited thoughts to wander. Santa Monica passed by the window like scenes from a movie Lena knew well, but now with a different soundtrack. The sky, even cloudy, kept a remnant of gold, the city seemed to breathe through the glass. Daniel asked if the night was beautiful. Lena smiled, said she thought so, though not sure whether she meant the weather or what was coming. Malibu appeared slowly, with its white roofs and long shadows. Alexandra's mansion lit up before them like a domestic constellation, warm lights, wide windows, palm trees learning to dance with the breeze. As she stepped out of the car, Lena felt the air turn sweeter, a mix of orange blossom and polished wood. She heard polite laughter in the distance, the rustle of fabrics, a shy cello playing somewhere. With every step along the stone path, the feeling in her stomach alternated between flight and landing. She thought of the word, company, about the way Alexandra had said it, without shame, without artifice. Her own skin seemed to respond like someone recognizing an old language, the language of connection. A meeting not scheduled in any calendar but arriving like a breeze, not pushing, inviting. At the glass door, a reflection, herself in a cut of blue silk, hair brushing her shoulders, eyes shining like the sea's edge when the sun insists. And behind the reflection, movement, Alexandra, approaching through the hallway with confident strides, light running over her dark blazer, her eyes lighter than usual because of the night. There was in her a contained tension, the kind that keeps a string perfectly tuned before the bow touches it. Lena felt her heartbeat adjust its rhythm to listen better. And when the door began to open, the clear image of Alexandra filled the frame, a discreet fragrance with notes of bergamot and something mineral, skin that seemed to hold the warmth of late afternoon, a mouth curved in an almost undecipherable smile, relief, surprise, desire. Perhaps all at once. "You came," said Alexandra, and the phrase carried quiet joy, a question already answered. Lena nodded. Up close she saw small details the cafe counter had hidden, a tiny freckle near the temple, a jaw muscle relaxing when she took a deep breath, the way her gaze rested and did not flee, as if remembering to look was the first act of courage for the night. "You look beautiful," Alexandra said, and the word beautiful moved through Lena's body like a ribbon tracing a path. It wasn't a routine compliment, it was recognition. The space between them vibrated in a new way, only centimeters apart, yet holding a polite distance that said as much as words. Lena felt the urge to touch the fabric of the blazer, not to prove it real but to understand the texture of a world she had only observed until now. She also felt restraint. It wasn't the moment yet. There were guests, voices, subtle flashes inside. Above all, there was a story that needed steps, and they were learning how to climb them. Alexandra extended her arm. She didn't touch, just offered the gesture. Lena didn't accept it right away, not from refusal, but to stretch that vibration of anticipation 1 second longer. Her hand halfway there, when suddenly a louder laugh from inside cut the corridor, bringing back the memory of the world around them, the orphanage, the donors, the night with its public purpose and private secret. "Shall we?" Alexandra asked, her tone mixing invitation and promise. Lena breathed, the air coming in cold and leaving warm. She was about to answer when, in the background, a figure in red crossed the hall, silhouette carved by light, like a silent omen. Alexandra's eyes shifted a millimeter, not enough to break the thread, but enough to spark a warning. Lena followed that glance for an instant, felt a brief chill, and looked back at the CEO. In the blink of an eye, she understood the night would demand delicacy and courage in equal measure. She opened her mouth to say, "Let's go," but what she saw in those blue eyes, a long-asked question seeking an answer, held the word at her lips. The corridor seemed to narrow, the music grew clearer, the scent of the garden slipped into the hall. And time, suddenly, chose the pause. The corridor breathed with them before the night swallowed them. Alexandra, still with her hand suspended, lowered her fingers gently and stepped aside, as if to say without words, "I'll move in your time." There was something in that gesture that quieted Lena's fear and lit another thing, the kind of courage one finds when someone truly sees them. They passed through the glass frame, and on the other side, the world opened into a room of warm lights, chandeliers spilling gold over long tables, white flowers with green branches like small domesticated forests. The cello that had once sounded distant now made the wood vibrate in their chests. Conversations in low tones crossed paths with measured laughter, and Lena felt her body learning a new gravity. "Breathe," whispered Alexandra, close enough for the word to touch Lena's skin like warm cotton. "I'll take care of the rest." It was an "I'll take care" without possession, almost like shelter. And for the first time that night, the barista allowed herself to exist there without apologizing to her reflection. The woman in red reappeared in the background, only for a moment, like a neon sign flickering on and off. Alexandra did not look. Instead, she introduced Lena to 2 investors, then to the orphanage's director, then to a journalist with a thin pen clipped to her notebook. "This is Lena Brooks," she said each time, and it was as if she tuned an instrument, writer. The word settled on Lena's shoulders with a good weight, the kind that straightens posture. She spoke of the book she had been writing in fragments, of late nights with an open notebook and growing cold coffee, of characters waiting for the right moment to appear. While she spoke, she noticed Alexandra's gaze, not one of public approval but of intimate surprise, the kind of look that recognizes a spark where no one else does. With each introduction, in the small space between people, the CEO's fingers lightly brushed Lena's lower back, a quick, almost formal gesture, yet warm enough to leave traces along her nerves. The orphanage director thanked her quietly, sharing a short story about a boy who drew windows on houses to remember that the world had exits. Lena nodded, feeling the words settle somewhere deep inside her. Alexandra listened with a kind of attention money can't buy. She tilted her head slightly, pressed a thumb along the rim of her glass, her blue eyes fixed in promise of presence. No one else might have seen it, but Lena noticed the CEO's jaw tighten, just a millimeter, when the words "night" and "fear" appeared together. It was a scar without a mark. The host cleared his throat into a microphone, and slowly the lights lowered to a more intimate shade. A screen lit up on the opposite wall, projecting images of backyards, hallways with scribbles, small hands holding colored pencils. The narrator's soft voice guided stories that bloomed and rebloomed within those frames. Lena felt the air around her shift, like when the tide returned stronger. Beside her, Alexandra's breathing shortened slightly. Without thinking, the barista moved 2 centimeters closer, enough for the CEO's silk sleeve to brush her skin. That nearly invisible touch lit a tender map, as if proximity could soothe a child who didn't want to sleep. "They're afraid of the dark," said the voice in the film. "But they learn to name the shadows." Lena looked down and saw Alexandra's fingers silently opening and closing, as if holding invisible things. Another person might have taken that hand in a final gesture. Lena chose the interval. She let her own hand hover nearby, not quite touching, just close enough for their warmths to converse without needing translation. Alexandra inclined slightly toward her, and in that tiny motion there was a thank you that no language could express. When the lights returned, the room filled with applause. Music resumed in a lighter tone, waiters appeared with trays, a flow of conversation refilled the air. Lena's body needed a moment to remember how to stand. Alexandra noticed. "Come," she said softly enough that only they heard. "I'll show you the garden." The corridor to the veranda seemed made of fresh air. Tall windows opened to a lawn that slid to a wooden deck overlooking the sea, as if the house itself had decided to reach out and touch the Pacific. The breeze carried scents of mint and salt. There, away from the crowd, Alexandra's posture changed almost imperceptibly, as when someone takes off their shoes after hours. The blazer settled more gently on her shoulders, her neck appeared freer, her gaze rested. "Thank you for tonight," she said, and "tonight" seemed to carry weeks within it. "It's the kind of evening that reminds you why you began." "And why did you begin?" asked Lena, not like a reporter, but like someone offering space for an answer. Alexandra looked at the sea first, then the wood beneath her feet, finally at Lena's face. "Because I needed a place," she said, and laughed softly at herself, short and honest, "and because I promised others wouldn't have to look for one alone." In that moment, the body that seems strong remembers it also tires. The barista nodded. Up close, she saw tiny sun freckles appear where the shirt opened. She also noticed the thin scar almost hidden near her wrist, a line only a distracted person would miss. The impulse to touch it didn't come like hunger, it came like comfort. But not yet. Instead, Lena let her voice make the gesture. "No one carries the weight of the world with muscles alone." The phrase landed on something ancient inside Alexandra. "You speak like someone who writes what she can't find in the dictionary," she said, and there was light in the words. "I don't know if you realize it, but the way you look at things changes them." They remained suspended in a fragile bubble that refused to burst. The garden light drew soft shadows on Alexandra's face. The wind made a loose strand of Lena's hair touch the corner of her mouth. The CEO raised her hand, hesitated. That millisecond was the border between gesture and fall. "May I?" she asked quietly, and the question, more than the answer, warmed Lena to the bone. "You may," she said, almost no sound. Alexandra brushed the blonde strand from Lena's face with her fingertips, slowly, like rescuing tissue paper without tearing it. The touch lasted only as long as a slow lightning flash but ignited paths the wind couldn't erase. From inside the house, someone called Alexandra's name. The voices swelled closer, reminding them the world still existed. The CEO smiled briefly, a gesture that said, "I'll be back." "I need to return for a few minutes," she said, her tone still intimate. "Stay. I promise to steal you later." "I'll stay," Lena answered, and to herself, it sounded like a vow. Alexandra stepped back, then another, walking toward the room again, turning her head over her shoulder before crossing the doorway, with a shimmer of restrained mischief. It was a promise. Lena stayed. She inhaled the scent of a fresh night, ran her hand along the wooden railing, heard the sea break softly. When her inner voices grew too loud, she pushed the glass door open again, like one seeking water. Inside, everything moved at a different speed. A silver-haired gentleman thanked donors, 2 women compared schedules, a photographer asked for, just one more, smile in his direction. Lena moved among people carefully, like someone aware of being a foreigner without needing permission. Occasionally, she caught a glimpse of Alexandra from afar, the way she greeted, her attentive listening, the disciplined grace with which she reclaimed her presence after each cluster of conversation. And always, at the end of each exchange, the CEO's eyes scanned the room for a split second that felt eternal, as if checking whether her compass still pointed north. When their eyes met, the ground felt firmer. It was during that passage that the figure in red finally materialized before Lena, as if sculpted by the room itself. The dress fell with precision, the lipstick had the color of night turning dangerous, and the smile belonged to someone who had long mastered measuring distance without a ruler. "You're Lena," she said, the name rolling off her tongue like a dice thrown on a table. "I'm Victoria." Lena held her gaze. "Pleasure." "The pleasure is all mine," Victoria replied, smooth as sugar. "I see Alexandra has a diverse taste." It wasn't an open offense, but it had an edge. Lena weighed possible replies and chose the one that hurt least. "Alexandra has a good heart," she said. "And that doesn't diversify." For a moment, something in Victoria's face tightened, like a protesting muscle. "I hope the evening is being kind to you." "It is," said Lena, and she didn't lie. "Kind and necessary." Victoria tilted her head as if storing a chess piece for later. "Necessary," she repeated. Interesting word. The music changed. Someone clinked a toast. Across the room, Alexandra thanked a couple and said goodbye with grace. Her eyes made their usual sweep, searching for Lena. When they found her, they also caught the red silhouette by her side. For less than a second, two entire stories spoke in the CEO's gaze. Lena noticed. And the tension that had merely been electric now took shape, a bridge between who they were and who they might become. "Can I talk to you outside?" Victoria asked, moving slightly toward the terrace. Lena looked at the glass door, then toward where Alexandra was making her careful way through the crowd. Their paths would cross in just a few steps. The air thickened, the entire room seemed to lean forward by a degree. The barista felt her heart choose the night's rhythm, her spine find a center, her skin anticipate a touch yet to come. And when she took her first step, a voice behind her, very close, said her name like a plea and an invitation at once. "Lena." The name spoken that way made Lena turn before the next word existed. Alexandra was already near, only a few steps away, as if the room itself had tilted to bring them closer. The CEO's black dress moved with precise grace, the V-neck revealed a triangle of skin where the chandelier light rested softly. There was firmness in her chin and vulnerability in her eyes, as if every public commitment required her to remember, alone, why she kept showing up. Victoria framed the scene with a rehearsed smile, waiting to slip in a clever remark between them. Alexandra, however, closed the distance first. "I've been looking for you for minutes," she said to Lena, not bothering to excuse herself to the red presence. The way her focus fixed on the barista turned the rest into background noise. "Can I show you something?" Victoria opened her mouth to intervene, but Alexandra's gesture was elegant and decisive, like someone closing a file. "Later, Victoria." "Excuse us." Lena felt heat rise from her wrist to her neck. "Can I show you something?" In that tone, half invitation, half care, was a thread begging to be followed. They crossed the room and entered a dimmer corridor where black and white photographs told the house's story, details of staircases, windows, hands on door handles. The sound of the event faded behind, like a sea still present but no longer invading. "I had these photos put here to remind me this house is made of doors," Alexandra said as they walked slowly. "Sometimes I forget to open them." Lena stopped before an image of a half-open window. Their reflections appeared faintly on the glass, layered over the night outside. "Doors can be heavy if we try to push them alone," she said, the phrase smaller than what she meant. "And do you push many things alone?" Lena Brooks asked, closer now than she had ever been. Her perfume carried a green note, clean, like crushed leaves, enough to make it look like everything's fine, Lena answered, the honesty sounding like a thirst only noticed after drinking. Alexandra smiled with the corner of her mouth, a smile that knew what self-protection meant. Her hand rose to the frame of the picture, paused, then slid down, tracing a line of air near Lena's shoulder without touching. The proximity lit up Lena's skin as if every pore were a small window opening. The navy blue silk neckline revealed the soft curve of her collarbone. Alexandra's eyes lingered there, unhurried, respecting the space like someone mapping a path before venturing. "You are," Alexandra began, the words stumbling between beautiful and impossible. "You are exactly how I imagined you'd look when the light finally decided to find you." Lena, who had learned not to blush in public scenes, felt a gentle fire spread across her face. "And you," she replied, with newfound courage, "do you feel less alone when someone sees you?" The question stopped Alexandra's breath for a second. She touched, delicately, the curve of Lena's hair, repeating the garden gesture, but now with purpose. "I do," she said simply, and that simplicity unlocked another door. Footsteps of a waiter approached and faded, the corridor breathed again. Alexandra pointed slightly toward the last photograph, where a spiral staircase seemed to descend into a basement. "Downstairs there's a room almost no one uses," she said, not with secrecy, but with an honest wish to create a space where conversation could exist without defense. "Come." They descended slowly, their hands brushing the wooden railing. The basement smelled of old library and forgotten jasmine. A wall of books, a leather armchair, a lamp with amber light that made everything feel nearer. It wasn't a secret room, it was one the house lent only to those who asked with their whole bodies. When the door closed behind them, the night pressed its ear to the wood. "I don't bring people here," Alexandra said, touching the lamp to soften the light. "Not for lack of wanting. For lack of courage." Lena sought her eyes. The world had always demanded courage of her in other forms, this was of a different kind. "You invited me to your house before inviting yourself into my life," she said, trying to keep humor afloat as a safety boat. "I accepted one part. I think I'd like to accept the other." Alexandra's eyes lowered to Lena's mouth and then back up, as if confirming the address before walking. She moved closer, a little, just enough for their breaths to touch. The silence there had texture, not emptiness, but an elastic field about to break beneath a word's weight. "If I kiss you now, will I be mistiming it?" she asked, the request landing on Lena's shoulders like a fine blanket. "If you don't kiss me, I might forget how to breathe," Lena replied, and it was as if she had said, yes, with her entire body. The first touch didn't come as claiming territory, it came as recognition. Alexandra's lips met Lena's with a softness that sought stories, not shortcuts. The kiss grew in time and temperature, like a city warming after fog. Alexandra's hand slid to Lena's nape, fingers spread like a cup, and the world narrowed to the skin where they met. There was a careful kind of fire there, the kind that lights before it burns. When they pulled apart, just enough to breathe, their foreheads rested together. Lena tasted mint and something citrus, and a small laugh escaped, a laugh like gratitude functioning quietly. "Sorry," she whispered. "I spent the whole day wondering if this was real or something I invented." "You don't invent things," Alexandra murmured, still too close. "You reveal them." From upstairs, a wave of applause drifted through the cracks. The event had resumed, someone must have said a beautiful number, the orphanage earned new promises. Down below, the promises were different. Alexandra sat in the armchair and motioned for Lena to settle on its arm, not as an object, but as one who shares rest. Their legs brushed lightly, their knees, side by side, began a silent conversation. They stayed like that seconds, perhaps minutes, breathing the same air, letting their bodies understand what the mind was still translating. "Can I tell you something and you pretend it isn't big?" Alexandra asked suddenly, voice low. "When I was 8, I was afraid of curved staircases. I thought they hid someone waiting below to surprise me. Now, every time I walk down one, I think about who I'd like to find waiting. Tonight, when I saw you at the top, I knew. Lena felt her heartbeat in a new place. I don't know what to do with that, except tell you I want to stay a little longer, she admitted, the honesty tasting like ripe fruit. Stay, said Alexandra, and the words sounded exact. The silence that followed was not absence, it was the complete presence that words sometimes cannot reach. Lena ran the tips of her fingers over the back of Alexandra's hand, tracing fine lines, subtle nerves, the shadow of a vein. Alexandra replied in the same language. She slid her hand over the blue fabric of the dress, without crossing boundaries, yet making it clear she knew exactly where each of them was. The room seemed to have contracted time around them. The door clicked softly, without warning. It did not open. It only reminded them that it existed. A touch of lightness dissolved the possibility that the world could suddenly burst in. Alexandra lifted her face, mentally calculating the minutes she owed to the event and those she wanted to keep for herself. I need to go back, she said, with reluctant honesty. There's still an auction, 2 thank yous, and a few photos I always forget how to pose for. And I need to relearn how to walk after this, Lena smiled, and the smile brought light to what could have been only melancholy. But and the sentence stopped in the middle, as if awaiting courage for the rest. But you? Alexandra breathed the question with old tenderness. I want this not to be an interval, she finished, firm. I want it to be the beginning. Alexandra held Lena's face in both hands, like someone framing a portrait to remember later. So do I, she said, and the second kiss was smaller, but carried a promise only the skin knows how to read. They climbed the stairs one step at a time, as if returning the body to the world with care. At the top, the sound of conversation resumed its place. The figure in red appeared again, this time further away, talking to someone who laughed loudly. Alexandra adjusted her blazer, the collar forming again that V that seemed made of intention. Lena, with the blue dress holding courage in its place, allowed her shoulders to show a little more. They exchanged a quick glance, a pact. After the auction, whispered Alexandra close to Lena's ear, the murmur sending a shiver up her spine, meet me on the deck. Lena nodded. The sea outside murmured as if agreeing to witness. And when the CEO took 2 steps toward the stage, a photographer appeared out of nowhere, pointing his camera with a polite request, a picture, please. The two stood side by side, the right distance between them, the light above, the camera waiting. The click didn't come. The photographer adjusted the focus, raised his hand. Just a second, he asked. Lena held her breath. Alexandra tilted her face slightly toward her, just millimeters. The flash finally went off. But what remained, more than the photo, was what did not fit inside the frame, the phrase Alexandra needed to say and that stopped on her lips, as if waiting to be completed outside the image. After, we. The wind from the sea crossed the deck and mixed with the distant sound of voices and clinking glasses. The party no longer had the same brightness as hours before. Now, the mansion breathed that interval between the end and what had not yet ended. Lena leaned against the wooden railing and looked at the horizon, a dark line separating the sky from the Pacific. The blue dress, once a disguise, now seemed part of her. The silk clung lightly to her skin, and the salt in the air drew small goosebumps across her bare shoulders. The soft tapping of heels echoed on the wooden floor before Alexandra appeared. The blazer had been left somewhere in the house, and the black blouse, slightly open at the neckline, revealed the delicate line of a golden chain. Her hair, once perfectly pinned, now fell in loose strands that framed her face. The air between them changed its density. I thought you might have already left, said Alexandra, approaching with the care of someone touching a memory. I thought about it, but the sea convinced me to stay, Lena answered, and the light tone didn't hide the waiting. Alexandra stopped beside her, their bodies almost touching. Her fragrance blended with the salt and the scent of damp wood. It has that power, she whispered. It convinces me to stay every day. For a few seconds, only the sound of the waves spoke. Lena's gaze lowered to Alexandra's hand resting on the railing, long fingers, a discreet ring, short nails. The urge to touch her was as natural as breathing. She held it back, but in holding it back, she created its own gesture. Alexandra noticed. "You have that curious look," she said, with a smile bordering on teasing. "As if you want to understand what I'm not yet ready to say." "Maybe I just want to read you," Lena replied. "You seem like a book that changes its story every time someone turns a page." Alexandra turned slowly, her face just centimeters away. "And if I let you turn the next one?" The air hung between them, and the question seemed to pass through clothes, fear, and protocol alike. Lena felt warmth rise through her throat. "Then I promise not to skip a single line." Alexandra's smile disappeared, replaced by a silence full of meaning. The CEO leaned her back against the railing and crossed her arms, but the gesture wasn't defensive, it was expectant. "You know what they're thinking in there, don't you?" she asked, eyes steady. "That I don't belong to this world." Lena lifted her chin. "But what they don't know is that I no longer belong to mine either." Alexandra let out a short laugh, surprised by the answer. "I think that's why I called you. We're two people who belong nowhere." The wind blew stronger, and Lena's hair brushed against Alexandra's face. The CEO took a strand between her fingers, unhurried, and the touch was so light it felt like a whisper. "The silk of your hair distracts me," she murmured. "It's unfair." Lena bit the corner of her lip. "Then stop fighting it." The sentence stayed there, vibrating in the space, before Alexandra gave in. The touch of hands came first, tentative, almost accidental, but firm enough to say what words hadn't dared yet. Then came their eyes, meeting as if seeking refuge. And finally, the kiss, slow, discovering path by path, as if each breath asked permission. It was an unhurried kiss, built through waiting, through all the hours spent holding back. Lena's body leaned into Alexandra's, and the world seemed to reorganize around them. Their breathing blended with the sound of waves, the warmth of their skin drawing invisible constellations. Alexandra held Lena's waist, and the barista rested her hands on her back, feeling muscle move beneath soft fabric. When they parted, silence was fuller than any word. Alexandra's gaze had changed, lighter, almost unbelieving. "That was," she began, but stopped, for the right verb did not yet exist. "Real," said Lena softly. "And enough for now." Alexandra pressed her forehead to hers. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to me?" she asked, laughing through a sigh. "I do," Lena answered. "The same thing you're doing to me." They stayed there, the sea as witness, until a distant voice, the master of ceremonies calling the hostess, pulled Alexandra back into the world. She sighed, reluctant. "I need to close the event." She ran her thumb along Lena's lower lip, as if keeping the memory of a taste. "Will you stay with me after?" "I already have," said Lena, with an almost shy smile. "Since the first coffee." Alexandra took a heartbeat longer to step away, then walked toward the glass door. Before entering, she looked over her shoulder. "Don't disappear," she said, and left. Lena stayed, watching the lights reflected on the water. For a moment, everything seemed simple. But inside the house, through the windows, she saw Victoria watching. The woman in red stood by the bar, holding a glass like a weapon. Her gaze found Lena's exactly, and a slow smile appeared, not of jealousy, but of warning. Lena looked away and turned back to the sea. The wind carried the distant echo of applause and the sound of doors closing. When Alexandra came back minutes later, alone, the party was over. She walked toward Lena, her bare feet silent, her hair looser still, and stopped before her. "What did she tell you?" she asked directly. "Nothing I didn't already know," Lena replied. That you frighten those who've never been truly loved. Alexandra smiled, surprised by the boldness. And you? Do you frighten anyone? Only those who confuse intensity with danger. They looked at each other as if the entire world could spin inside that instant. Alexandra stepped forward, then another, until the space between them disappeared. The kiss that came next was more urgent, less restrained, not out of impatience, but recognition. As if they both finally understood they no longer needed to hide. Alexandra's hands traced the line of Lena's waist, the touch rose slowly, mapping the path to her neck. Lena's body responded, not as surrender but as choice. And in the reflection of the window, the sea seemed to move at the same rhythm. When the kiss ended, their breathing was one. Tomorrow will be different, said Alexandra, voice rough. Tomorrow can wait, Lena replied. I'm still here. The laughter that followed was the lightest sound that house had ever heard. Alexandra wrapped her arms around Lena's shoulders and pulled her into a long embrace. It was neither an ending nor a beginning, it was the exact pause between what the heart fears and what it finally allows. Inside, the clock struck midnight. Outside, the world seemed to breathe in rhythm. And when Alexandra whispered in her ear, "Come with me," there were no more doubts. Only the sound of the sea, the slide of silk, and the certainty that nothing there would be forgotten. The house seemed to have saved one last breath for them when Alexandra said, "Come with me," and, with her hand interlaced with Lena's, led her through the silent corridor. The path to the suite past paintings, half-open doors, fragments of music still hovering in the air like golden dust after the celebration. In the room, the light came from low lamps, an amber tone that softened edges and made skin gentler. There were flowers in a simple vase, fine cotton sheets, a chair by the window with a view of a rectangle of sea framed by palm trees. Alexandra removed her shoes first, as if returning her feet to the earth, and approached slowly, studying Lena's face as if memorizing routes. The kiss that came was not urgency, but some, of all the almosts, of all the laters, the two had held inside all night. Alexandra's hand rested on Lena's waist and drew a slow line to her hip. Lena's hand rose along the front of her black shirt to the curve of her neck, where she felt a steady pulse, life beating to the same rhythm as her own. They laughed softly when a strand of hair got caught in a button, laughed again when a sleeve snagged one of the rings. With each clumsy motion came more closeness, more intimacy in what they were building. Lena's blue dress slid down her body like water and found the chair. Alexandra's forgotten blazer formed a small mountain on the carpet. The touch lost hesitation and gained intention, but never ceased to be gentle. There were questions along the way, and all were answered through eyes, through the tilt of a face, through the way one gave her weight to say, yes. Their skin discovered maps that had not existed before, small hollows where warmth gathered, trails starting at the shoulder and ending in the fold of an arm, the scent of the sea outside mixed with the discreet fragrance of bergamot, and both understood, at the same time, that this was not performance. It was an opening of the inner home, a letting oneself be visited. When they fell onto the bed, the sheets breathed with them. The light from a lamp drew shadows across collarbones shaped by promise. Lena felt the world narrow to the point where Alexandra's mouth found hers again, deeper, like diving after practicing at the edge. Their breathing quickened and slowed in turns, that rhythm of approach and care that cannot be taught. Alexandra's fingers followed a path along Lena's arms, rested on her abdomen, traced the line of her hip and returned, always attentive to even the smallest sign. Lena explored Alexandra's back with open palms, feeling the muscles respond beneath her skin, as if each fiber were music. Time stretched without counting seconds, the sounds wished the world would knock, but the house itself seemed to conspire for their silence. When they finally stopped, for a small breath, their foreheads touching, the salt of their mingled sweat recalled the Pacific, and Lena said, in a thin voice that sounded larger than any speech, "Thank you for not giving up on seeing me." Alexandra closed her eyes for a moment and, when she opened them, there was the girl who once needed windows where there were none. "Thank you for seeing me without showcases," she replied. What followed would not fit in any photograph. They were gestures born from within, a choreography that imitated nothing but two lives finally laid side by side. Affection discovered urgency and returned it to stillness. Stillness asked for breath and urgency turned to heat. The whispers, names, laughter, small questions, anchored themselves in mutual understanding. It was long not because it lasted on the clock, but because it lasted on the skin, and when their bodies finally reached that point where everything converges, there were no words, nor need for them. There was a tight embrace sealing it, a hand seeking another, a look that said, "Here," and it was enough. The room fell silent. Outside, the water struck the rocks in its ancient rhythm. There, lying together, they discovered what it meant to fit. They stayed silent for a while, staring at the ceiling line, like people learning again to pronounce their own names. And the words came, first timid, then whole. Alexandra spoke of the day she decided that strength was not the opposite of care. She said that building a network of gyms had given her purpose but not home. She confessed she feared carrying someone in her schedule and losing herself. She laughed at herself for being afraid of the very thing her body had always known, elevation. Lena spoke of the folded diploma and the rejection letters with identical phrases, revealed that she avoided falling in love with her own characters for fear of not recognizing herself afterward, admitted that when she first saw Alexandra enter the café, she thought that woman was made for daylight, and only now, that night, realized she also belonged to the dark, not the darkness of fear, but that of confidence shared. Between confessions, they touched again almost unconsciously, as if the body were the most honest way to say, "I am here." Midnight folded into dawn, and in one of its folds, the city slept. Alexandra rose quietly, closed the curtain a bit more, left the window ajar so the sound of the sea would not abandon them, brought a glass of water, brushed a strand of hair from Lena's face. "Tomorrow I might need to protect you from my world," she said, without drama. "And I from mine," replied Lena, without fear. They made a pact, not of secrecy but of care. What was theirs would stay safe from opinions, not out of shame but love. And before returning to sleep, they wrote in the air a simple plan that fit in the palm of a hand: dinner on Tuesday, coffee early Saturday, a reading aloud, of a chapter, a paragraph, a sentence that did not yet exist. When morning came, it came with a sun that did not shout. It entered through the crack, touched the sheet, drew light on skin. Lena woke to the smell of coffee from the kitchen and the sound of bare feet on wood. Alexandra opened the door with a mug and a smile that seemed both new and old. "I thought it would be symbolic," she joked, offering the cup. Lena took a sip, her tongue recognized the roast, her whole body recognized home. They sat on the edge of the bed, legs tangled, letting the brightness begin the day. There was a world beyond the gate, unread messages, commitments, the color of Victoria's dress in some memory, but no urgency crossed the morning. Alexandra picked up her phone, erased a drafted phrase of "thank you for attending," and instead wrote to the orphanage director offering a visit the following week. Without press, Lena, with her free hand, opened her phone's notes app and wrote, without overthinking, "A house that learns the name of who enters." She saved it, already knowing that, for the first time in months, her words had somewhere to continue. After the second coffee came the hour for shoes. Alexandra tied her hair and put on a light sweatshirt over her shirt, a mixture of CEO and Sunday. Lena stepped back to look, and it was as if she saw the real woman beneath every layer, the strength in the way she stood, the tenderness when she lowered her eyes, the gentle decision with which she fit her hand on the door. "Do you want me to stop by the cafe today?" Alexandra asked, more as an offer than a test. "I want you to come when it's yours," Lena replied. "But if it's today, I'll save you the corner table." The joke carried a serious truth: they would not fit inside shelves of expectation. They would belong in what they built. There were no speeches in their farewell. There was a brief kiss that tasted of the future. There was an embrace that lasted a few seconds longer. There was a phrase from Alexandra, whispered, that worked like a law: "Nothing that happened yesterday depends on everyone else understanding." Lena went down the stairs with the dress folded over her arm and courage in her chest. On the sidewalk, Malibu's light had that clarity of a day beginning clean, The driver waved kindly, she waved back, but chose to walk to the corner instead, just to prolong the path of knowing herself alive. Later, at the Coastal Bean, Mike raised his eyebrows as she stepped through the door. Lena smiled, grabbed her apron, turned on the machine. The hiss of steam sounded different, as if improvising another melody. Each order now carried an extra gesture, the patience to listen better, attention to the name, the will to offer shelter. And in the middle of the morning, when the bell rang and a discreet customer in a light sweatshirt and low cap approached the counter, Lena did not need to look twice. "The usual?" she asked, with a smile that only those who truly know can read completely. "Today, to stay," the other replied, and both laughed like people finishing a sentence that had been writing itself forever. What remained from that night was not a dress on a chair, nor the view from a mansion. It was the lesson that belonging is not an address, it is a meeting. It is not about fitting into the world of another, but about creating a place where both can breathe. It is about courage, the courage to remove armor, to be seen, to say, "I choose." It is about understanding that some loves do not arrive with fireworks, they arrive like a breeze that insists, coffee that warms, sea that continues. And when they arrive, they ask for daily tending, small conversations, hands that find each other, readings aloud, laughter that disarms. The rest, what people say, expect, or project, stays outside the door, because home, they learned, is where two people choose to care for what is real. Thank you for listening to this story until the end. If it touched you in some way, subscribe to Secret Garden Stories, leave your comment telling which scene stayed on your skin, and share it with those who believe that love, when it finds its harbor, becomes horizon.